Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a hobby that takes one of the most common things in the world, a simple lock, and turns it into a fascinating mechanical puzzle.
You know, when you hear the term lockpicking, your brain probably goes straight to the movies, right? Some super spy in a tuxedo or a thief in all black working against the clock.
But the reality? Oh, it's so much cooler. For a huge, and I mean huge community of people all over the globe, it's not a crime. It's a sport. A competition of skill, patience, and some serious finesse.
Yeah, that's right. The way Hollywood shows it, it's not the whole story. So let's kind of pull back the curtain and separate the movie magic from the real-life sport.
Okay, so it's called LockSport. And the whole point, the very heart of it, is to understand how a lock works. It's about appreciating the mechanism, not trying to beat it for some shady reason. Just think of it like a Rubik's Cube, but with pins and springs. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but how do you keep this from, being illegal? Well, the entire community is built on a super strict code of ethics. Seriously, it really just boils down to two golden rules that you can never, ever break. And rule number one is the big one. It's the absolute foundation of everything. You only pick locks you own or locks you have been given explicit permission to pick. That's it. That is the bright shining line between a hobbyist and a criminal. No gray area.
And rule number two? It's just smart. It's common sense. You don't practice on the lock to your apartment or your car or your bike. Why not? Because, hey, you're learning, and you could actually break it. This is all about solving a fun puzzle, not locking yourself out of your own house.
So, if it isn't some kind of dark magic, how in the world is it even possible to open a lock without a key? Well, the secret is all in the mechanics, and it starts with a tiny universal flaw that's in almost every lock ever made.
So if you were to crack open a normal pin tumbler lock, this is basically what you'd see. You've got these two sets of pins, the key pins and the driver pins, sitting in these little columns. See, without the right key, those top pins, the driver pins, are pushed down, crossing what's called the shear line. That physically jams the cylinder so it can't turn.
It looks like a perfect system, doesn't it? The correct key lifts every pin to just the right height, everything lines up perfectly, and the lock opens. Without it, you're stuck. So, where's the weak spot? How do you get around that? And here it is. This is the whole secret. No lock is perfect. It's impossible to manufacture something with that many moving parts with total microscopic precision. The little holes the pins sit in, they're never perfectly aligned. And that tiny, invisible imperfection is what makes everything possible. It's called the binding defect.
So because of those little manufacturing flaws, when you put a little bit of turning pressure on the lock, what pickers call tension, the force doesn't get spread out evenly to all the pins. Instead, all that pressure gets funneled to just one pin, the one that's the most out of line. It gets trapped first. It binds.
And that one pin? That's the binding pin. The entire game of lockpicking is learning how to feel for that single pin. You have to find the one that's binding, the one that has all the pressure on it, and deal with it while completely ignoring all the others.
So here's how it all works together. You use one tool, a tension wrench, to apply that little bit of turning force. That makes one pin bind. Then with your other tool, the pick, you go searching for that one pin. You gently lift it up, and when it reaches the shear line, you'll feel a tiny little click. The cylinder will turn just a hair, and then a new pin will bind. You just find it, set it, and repeat the whole process, one pin at a time.
And believe me, this isn't just a solo hobby for people tinkering in their garage. A whole amazing global culture has popped up around solving these little mechanical puzzles.
I mean, just look at this. You've got these huge international competitions. There are belt ranking systems, kind of like in martial arts, to show your skill level. There are massive online forums, and get this, they actually work with lock companies to help them find weaknesses and build more secure locks for all of us. How cool is that?
You know, what's really wild is just how friendly and helpful this community is. I was reading one guide that said something I just have to share. It basically said, look, I hate to recommend Reddit because, well, it's Reddit, but the lockpicking subreddit is actually lovely. And it's true. It's all about sharing tips and cheering on beginners.
And if you need proof of how big this has gotten, check out this number. over 4 million. That's how many people subscribe to just one of the top LockSport channels on YouTube. That's not some niche hobby anymore. That is mainstream.
Which brings us to the real question here, right? If you're not doing it to steal stuff, why do it? What's the point? What's the motivation that gets millions of people so hooked on this?
Well, it really boils down to your goal. A thief could not care less about the lock itself. It's just a dumb obstacle. They only want what's on the other side. But for a lock sporter, the lock is the treasure. The goal is to understand what's going on inside it, to solve the puzzle it presents.
Ultimately, it's about that feeling of satisfaction. You're taking on this complex little machine, this intellectual challenge, but you're solving it with your sense of touch. And then you get that physical, tangible, incredibly satisfying click when the lock opens. That's the reward. It's you against the puzzle, and you won.
So maybe the next time you use your keys, you'll think about that little world of pins and springs working away in there. It really makes you wonder, how many other incredible little puzzles are just hiding in plain sight, all around us, every single day?
Hey, if you enjoyed diving into this hidden world, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next explainer. Thanks so much for watching.